Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Chamber TV, episode number 175. And today we are continuing our discussion with the various candidates seeking public office in Rhode Island. And today we're talking to Stefan Pryor, who is a candidate for general treasurer in Rhode Island as a Democrat. And we have talked to others in this race. So we are concluding the treasurer's discussion, and it's so great to see you again, Stefan. How are you today?
Fantastic to be with you, Laurie, and congratulations on 175 shows.
Well, we started in the pandemic, and we used it as a way to stay in touch with our members. And certainly, you are no stranger to Chamber TV. You've been on dozens of times in your prior role as Secretary of Commerce in Rhode Island. So let me just begin by first really thanking you, Stefan, for the extraordinary work that you put in as our Secretary of Commerce dating to 2015. And I've spent a lot of time with you and your team working on so many projects. And the work that you've done in this space has truly been remarkable and transformational. And we owe you a debt of gratitude. And many years ago, when we were studying this office from the chamber perspective and what we needed in the role, we were very clear with prior governors that we needed an economic development professional. And you certainly came through with your many credentials. So before we actually begin the discussion around General Treasurer, on behalf of the Chamber, let me just say thank you. Thank you
Appreciate
again
it so
for
much.
everything you've done. And we have an interesting series of questions teed up for you today, Stefan. We can continue the long conversations we've been having about the recovery and post-pandemic and some of the things that you see happening in the environment today and what you would do essentially in this role as General Treasurer if you were to be elected. Sound good?
Sounds fantastic. So grateful for the opportunity. And thank you to the Chamber for all that you did to help move the economy. So right back at you. And once again, so glad to be here.
Great. So for those of our listeners who may not be 100% familiar with your background and your professional accomplishments, let me just, throw it out very openly and ask you to tell us a little bit about why you're entering the race and what your credentials, how you would set your credentials apart from some of the others also in the race.
I appreciate that very much, Laurie. Well, I had a wonderful opportunity to serve under two governors, Gina Raimondo and Dan McKee, as Rhode Island's Commerce Secretary for 7.5 years. And that apparently, Laurie, is the longest any top commerce official has served in Rhode Island history, and by a significant number of years. I'm honored to have served in that capacity. And we got a lot done together during those 7.5 years. I think I'll come back to that. And since you asked about my background, I'll start at the top, if you will. I'm the son of two public school teachers. And my parents taught me throughout my early life about the value of public service. And I learned from their example. I learned about the importance of giving to the next generation. And I have engaged in public service through almost my entire career. And some highlights. I was called into service at the World Trade Center after September 11th, 2001. The state and city of New York set up a brand new public agency for the purpose of coordinating the rebuilding of the World Trade Center and the revitalization of Lower Manhattan after the attacks and the disaster. The Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, I became its president, and there oversaw the investment of billions of dollars of public funding for the purpose of bringing the World Trade Center back. The commercial towers in replacement of the Twin Towers, the memorial to those we lost, and also bringing back economic life to the financial capital of the world there in Lower Manhattan. Was very proud about that round of service. I've served in a number of capacities since, and I think, look, I'm most proud of what we have done here in Rhode Island together. When Governor Raimondo and I took office in 2015, we inherited an economy that you could argue was the worst in America, meaning that the unemployment rate had been the highest in the United States. And together, working with your chamber, Laurie, with your leadership and your members, and with Chambers Plural and with the business community, we together put a strategy together, and we saw one of the biggest decreases in unemployment in the whole country. We hit an all-time high number of jobs multiple times, and we had really strong economic momentum by investing in small businesses with the state's, we believe, first ever, if you can believe it, first ever state-backed loan program for small businesses, and with a series of ways to help small businesses. Supply RI that links smaller Rhode Island businesses with larger purchasers that are also Rhode Island, universities, hospitals, companies, helping link small Rhode Island businesses and helping to grow and attract businesses to expand the number of jobs for Rhode Islanders, especially well-paying jobs. We hit an all-time high number of jobs repeatedly. And then, of course, COVID came. We hadn't solved all our problems yet, but we had terrific economic momentum, and proudly so, and robustly so. And then COVID hit, and like across the whole country, the economy saw a dip. The nationwide economic downturn was a major phenomenon in the economy. And I'm just so pleased that Rhode Island, which had been a laggard, not a leader, coming out of the Great Recession. That's what I described about the beginning of our tenure, Governor Raimondo and I. Instead, coming out of COVID, we are a leader in the nation and certainly in the region. And let me explain. Moody's, the Moody's Analytics division of the rating agency, Moody's tracks the 50 states on the strength of their recovery. They call it their back to normal index. How fast are we recovering back to the baseline level of economic activity pre-COVID? Rhode Island is number 2 in the whole nation. Last time I checked, number 2 in the whole nation for the strength of our recovery, and number 1 in the Northeast. And we've been number 1 in the Northeast for months and months. We are leading the way for the region and even for the country. And I can say more about that. I don't want to go on and on. I want to make sure that we're having a dialogue, but Rhode Island is in a good place, Laurie. We are leading the way. And a key reason why I'm running for treasurer is I want to make sure that the treasury, with professional staff who are skilled in finance, and with all of the positioning of that office, the platform of that office, that we use it to keep the economy strong, indeed to strengthen the economy going forward. So working in partnership with the governor, whoever he or she may be after the election, I hope we can do that.
Yeah, so thank you for that perspective, Stefan. And absolutely, you have been the longest serving Commerce Secretary, and that job repeatedly turned over because it was so very, very difficult. And I think with your leadership and your stability, that's what's been able to help Rhode Island, in fact, truly rebound and to add jobs and to lead the nation, as you so artfully described. So, leadership is important. Stability is important. Having public service, public sector background, very important. And also what we looked at was the ability to put together real estate deals that made sense for the taxpayers and at the same time help to yield jobs and to make a difference in terms of setting up competitive industry structures whereby other industry, like-minded industry, would be ready and prepared to invest in Rhode Island. So I think that's what you have brought to the table. And I'm curious, first and foremost, would you agree with that assessment? And secondarily, how do you see that threading into the role of the treasurer?
I would agree with that. I think that the projects that we had in place together, all of us working together, have propelled the economy through the COVID-related downturn that has really stifled economic growth for other states. I should note, and I want to get into that, but I should note, not only are we number 2 in the country and doing well in the region, leading the region, I should note, Massachusetts has been in the 40s for the whole time, and New York 50th or 49th the whole time. So last time I checked, Massachusetts was 43rd. We're second in the country. New York, last time I checked, was 50th. We're second in the country. We are really outdistancing states that have traditionally had among the strongest economies in the country and have outdistanced us in the past. Now we're the ones emerging strong. You're right. Some of the projects that we help to coordinate, facilitate, invest in are coming to fruition. And part of the reason is why across 2 governors, Governor Raimondo, Governor McKee, we never shut down construction sites during COVID. We never shut down manufacturing sites. Now, Laurie, we responsibly worked with industry and labor to develop guidance that was implemented. Spread workstations, aerate spaces, wear masks. We developed cooperative guidance without shutting down these workplaces, these construction and manufacturing sites. So unlike many of our peers, we continuously operated. There were not profound outbreaks, and projects are coming to fruition. Electric Boat is building an expansion. Amgen, the pharmaceutical plant, is building an expansion. A hotel was birthed in the 195 district, the old jewelry district, the Aloft Hotel, built all the way through safely through the pandemic. The Hammets Wharf Hotel in downtown Newport, built all the way through the pandemic, now fully open and vibrant. We would all, I bet, guess that if we hadn't enabled that, we'd have monuments to incompletion across the landscape in Rhode Island, and these things might not get completed for decades. So, and now I'm proud to report to you, Laurie, in the construction and manufacturing sectors, we have more jobs now, more jobs than pre-pandemic. If you look at the baseline before the pandemic started, we have more jobs in those 2 sectors. So we really outpaced our reference states, or really most states in the whole country. So all of those things. So we got those projects going together, Laurie. We helped to invite them, help existing Rhode Island companies plan expansions, help new pharmaceutical plants land here, like Rubius Pharmaceuticals, new hotels get birthed here, and then enabled them to happen during the pandemic very safely and responsibly. And we managed the public dollars in those instances where there were public dollars at all very carefully and responsibly, minding the taxpayers' dollars, not placing our dollars into projects until the projects were already complete and we knew that they would contribute economic energy. Not a single dollar until they were complete. So all these things have contributed to the economic momentum.
Yeah, I think what you're describing, and it's kind of interesting hearing you tick off, the variety of projects that have really been birthed, as you say, in Rhode Island over the last couple of years. But you've had an interesting vantage point of being, being very familiar and having spent a lot of time in each of the regions. So whether it's Northern Rhode Island, or whether it's the East Bay and Newport, or taking a look at what's happening in South County, Providence. So I'm wondering, do you sense, or do you feel as though each region has a particular set of economic circumstances? And from the role of general treasurer, how would you go about managing the public finances, as we've been talking about? And that is the backbone, truly the backbone of the statutory requirements for the role of general treasurer.
Totally true. Yeah, I do think that the regions have different strengths, and that as a whole, Rhode Island has strengths that we can build upon. And we need someone in the treasurer's office who understands that for a variety of reasons. One more economic benchmark: we're at the lowest unemployment rate that we have on record at 2.7%. The nation's at 3.6%. We're doing better than the United States with our unemployment rate. Massachusetts, we're at 2.7%. They're at 3.7%. We're at 2.7%. Connecticut is at 4%. You get the idea. All these indicators show that we're in a strong position, but we cannot rest on our laurels, because we know that with inflation up and the stock market down, we are facing an uncertain stretch. The uncertainty in our economy will create effects that we don't know yet and could slow down our economy. To be sure, we could head into a recession. It's a point of debate, but it absolutely could happen. So you're right. There are regional strengths that, if we double down on them, could keep each of the regions of our state revved up. So in Northern Rhode Island, we are having great success with attracting and expanding biopharmaceutical manufacturing. I mentioned quickly that Rubius Pharmaceuticals had landed here. Where did they land from here in Northern Rhode Island? They landed from Cambridge and Boston, where their R&D was conducted, and they created their first ever manufacturing plant in Rhode Island. We're also building one of the nation's largest Amazon distribution centers, not just for last mile delivery in Rhode Island, that's important, but a big regional asset in Johnston. We are seeing terrific growth in the blue economy, Aquidneck Island and environs being the one of the centermost places in the world, one of the locuses of the industry. Electric boat expanding. Also seeing smaller ventures that are coming up with innovative technologies. Siren Marine, with its sensor technology attached to boats that can be used for safety and security reasons, and for other environmental monitoring reasons. Offshore wind, where Rhode Island is the pioneer. And look at something like Inspire Environmental, based out of the old Sheffield School in Newport. The Sheffield School having been converted into an incubator called Innovate Newport. Inspire Environmental, the firm, is helping to map the ocean bottom and monitor ocean mammals and make sure that development for clean energy purposes can happen responsibly and strategically and effectively. And they're a contributor to the whole offshore wind industry in the United States. We are still the only state in the water with turbines off of Block Island, and we're going to expand. We'll expand up to the point, Laurie, where once we do 400 megawatts and then another 1,000 megawatts, thanks to the General Assembly's leadership and passage of that, we will be able to fuel half of our grid with clean energy, thanks to all of that offshore wind activity. That's a significant scale. So, and I could go on, fisheries and seafood processing in South County. We're going to make major investments there, thanks to a bond issuance and some investments in Narragansett. It goes on from there. Providence, with headquarters and small businesses, including minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses that are now thriving and expanding. I don't want to take too much time. I could keep going through it, but we do have strengths that are in different segments of our state, regions. And we also do have statewide certain sectors that can animate and advance our overall economy. The blue economy, I talked about offshore wind as relates to Aquidneck Island and environs, but offshore wind, we have the co-headquarters in the United States for one of the biggest wind companies in the world, Ørsted, in Providence. We have 22 and growing every day, 22 entrepreneurs and companies that relate to the wind industry in our incubator at the so-called Wexford building, 225 Point, the brand new incubator building curated by Cambridge Innovation Center. Over 20 companies that are related to the wind industry that are incubating or have a foothold in the United States from an international location here in Rhode Island for the United States. Look at all of that activity. We need someone in the Treasurer's office who understands the strengths of our state, who knows how to attract investment, who can help to jointly with the governor, jointly with chambers, jointly with the private sector, can convene all of the players to continue strategizing and continue attracting investment for these purposes. Should the investment for these purposes be from the pension fund? Mostly it should be from elsewhere. Private capital, other forms of public investment, including bond issuances, what the Treasurer's office helps with by sizing and advising regarding such issuances. But can the pension fund play a role in carefully and strategically and in a measured way growing those sectors that make sense for Rhode Island? Yes, that was part of your question, Laurie. And to conclude on this point, one of the things that we need to do is the pension fund should not be a project by project, real estate investment arm. Absolutely not. But what it can do is forecast which sectors are growth sectors in the nation and world. In other words, good investments in general, clean energy, for example, a good investment. Even fossil fuel companies are hybridizing their own activities to move towards clean energy. So if that's a good bet for investments in general and has the added benefit of bringing more investment to Rhode Island because of our pioneering status, it would seem to me that's the kind of careful, thoughtful investment move that we should continue to make.
Stefan, want to put a little bit of a finer point on your vision for the Treasurer's office and how you would thread the needle a little bit differently than perhaps we've seen thus far, and building on your experience as an economic developer, how would you go into the role of General Treasurer and evaluate the key elements of that role? We talked a little bit about the pension fund. There are other places where the treasurer has an outsized role. The 529 plan, as an example,
yes,
as an accelerant for educational achievement and completion. And also, we have some general concerns about, the overall strength of our municipalities as we continue to achieve and to come back in a very strong way, albeit from the recession. So let's talk a little bit about how you would change a little bit, around the edges to make
yes.
the role of treasurer, more dynamic and more contemporary.
Well said, and I will underscore what you're expressing, which is that we're fortunate in that recent treasurers, the past couple treasurers, have done a good job stabilizing our pension fund and stabilizing our state's finances, and those are some of the core responsibilities of the treasurer. So there's a strong platform to build upon, and I think it's really our obligation and it's our opportunity to build upon that platform. So I've already spoken a little bit about the pension fund management, and I think that's absolutely at the core. And what you should know is that if I am the treasurer, what we will do is take a very analytical approach, a very rigorous approach to looking at which subcomponents of the pension fund are performing and which are not, which fund managers are underperforming relative to other instances where they're managing money and relative to comparable states. So within other states' pension funds, how does their fund management stack up? We're going to do some very transparent, even unforgiving analysis of how the different components of the fund are performing and make sure that we are optimizing our investments. So that's one thing that we're going to do. And we're going to take the kind of investment approach that I described carefully in a measured manner, moving towards those sectors that may be future focused and may be predicted to show great growth. So they're wise investments, independent of any other factor, but also where they may benefit Rhode Island. So having said all of that, what else might we do with the Treasurer's office, as you say, Laurie, to build upon that? 3 things. And these are highlights. 3 things. 1, small business. During the pandemic, the state of Rhode Island set up programs thanks to major influxes of federal funding to assist small businesses. I am proud to have had a lot to do with that. We set up grant programs to help businesses, small businesses, cover their fixed costs, pay the rent, pay the light bill, get through. It's one of the reasons why we have one of the strongest recoveries in the whole country and the strongest in the region, is that we helped small businesses. But it shouldn't take a pandemic to have such programs. I'm glad that we were able to use it to catalyze interest and to get them set up. But I believe that commitment should not end with the pandemic, and that we should create permanent programming. And I believe the permanent home for such financing for small businesses should be the Treasurer's office. There's terrific financial acumen in the staff of the Treasurer's office. The Treasurer's office has great relationships with the banking community of Rhode Island, a lot of interrelationships with banks and credit unions. We can use this knowledge and this familiarity to create access to capital for small businesses, for minority-owned businesses, for women-owned businesses, for veteran-owned businesses, and continue the strong track record we did have during the pandemic. Point 2 of 3, access to the banking system for households. Still too many Rhode Island families are keeping money under a mattress. They are understandably turned off by or intimidated by banks and credit unions for savings and checking accounts and other retail banking products. We had a little issue with the credit unions some years back that people still remember, and it has shaken their confidence. But perhaps more so, people's experience with banking, if you're a middle income family, if you're a lower income family, and you had to maintain a minimum balance and you fell below and you got slapped with a fine or a fee, or you wanted to cash a check and you got driven to a cash checking place with ridiculous fees, or you needed a payday loan to make it through, and your bank or your credit union, your traditional bank or credit union, was not hospitable, you may not enter the banking system. You may pull out of the banking system. You may not do most of your activity that way. There are templates around the country where communities have worked together with banks and other professional lending and finance institutions to create criteria that in the early stages of one's banking experience bring families in, middle income and low income families. We can do this in Rhode Island. There are models elsewhere. We can do it. Third and finally, while we grow prosperity by helping to attract investment to key industries, while supporting our small businesses and opening up access to the banking system, we must protect the vulnerable. Those are our Rhode Island values. We want to protect those who may be under tough circumstances. So how do we protect the vulnerable? An illustration would be in a family where there are exceptionally tough conditions, even domestic violence. One partner may be looking to exit, to escape, but one barrier may be financial, meaning there may be joint bank accounts or otherwise entangled finances that actually make it hard to get out of there. I believe the Treasurer's office can help to develop financial instruments where there's anonymous financing that will help an individual escaping gain financial footing, not detectably out there. So if you used a credit card that was shared, that could be a problem. We can develop a bridge to a better financial future and a new life. So you get the idea, Laurie. I think we can grow prosperity. We can help businesses, small and large, to create outstanding opportunities for Rhode Islanders, high quality, well-paying jobs for Rhode Islanders. We can open up the banking system and we can protect the vulnerable. We can do all these things, but we need strong leadership and truly capable leadership with a track record managing billions of dollars of public investment we need that kind of professional in the treasurer's office, and I'm hoping to be that person.
Stefan, we only have 2 minutes left, but I wanted to ask you to address the 529 plan, which is a program of the General Treasurer's Office, and it has tentacles into public education. And
Yes.
so many of our listeners are very concerned about the future of our schools and about the ability of our children, our families, to continue to access public education. So, how would you interface with that?
It's so important that the 529 plan continue to be managed ably, with enthusiasm, which I would do. I think enabling college savings in that manner, tax deferred with all of the advantages of a 529, it's so important. So I would take that as seriously as any responsibility of the treasurer's office. But I'm glad for the question, because I think we can expand upon that work to do even more to help families save and to further invest in public education and an educational opportunity for Rhode Islanders. So, first of all, I've already talked about access to the banking system. Access to the banking system does enable further opportunities to save and build wealth, especially for middle income and lower income households. That's very important. So, that banking initiative that I described is a companion initiative for the 529 plan. But there are some other models in the country. Some states, a handful of states, have started to move towards what they call baby bonds, or investments that begin at the birth of a child, especially for children who are lower income and middle income. There may be an initial deposit in a tax-free savings account or a similar banking product, and there may be new increments over the years placed in, like matching funds, matching deposits, that incentivize a family to save, also enable a family to save more, brings a multiplier effect to the wealth that's being built. I'm not sure that this is the right model, and I'm not sure we can afford it, but I want to look closely at it. A number of other states have done it. One of the leaders I admire most, and one of my mentors, Cory Booker, now in the United States Senate, has proposed federal versions of this. So the other thing that we can do is advocate federally, with our experience with the 529 plan right here in Rhode Island, advocate federally to bring home resources to enable something like a baby bonds program or another savings vehicle for families for college. And let me also emphasize this, Laurie. I think it's important that, yes, savings accounts be available for college purposes for young people who are on a pathway to college, but also some young people will choose job training, stackable certificates that are not college per se, to end up in professions and careers that may not require college. We should enable savings for that too. And while we're talking education, one final point: the treasurer plays a major role in the K-12 public school construction program of the state. And Treasurer Magaziner has done an especially good job in enabling that. So from the bond issuances for school construction through to the overall program, I will be a treasurer who passionately and professionally continues to grow that program, because every school should be safe and dry and conducive to teaching and learning. And on the safety front, we should make sure that there's security features that protect our young people and our educational professionals, but do so invisibly, so a school does not look like a prison. And there's terrific architectural examples around the country now for that. And again, we need to create classrooms and other learning spaces that are marvelous for children and great for teachers. So thank you for asking that question, Laurie. There's so much we can do for pre-K to 12 education, all the way through to higher ed and job training and career, and helping people have gainful employment and enjoyable lives.
I hadn't heard the concept before of the college savings program, and potentially morphing that or shaping it so that it can be accessible to young people who, again, wish to participate in the stackable certificates or trade school, and some of those professions that are so desperately needed in our economy today.
Exactly.
And I think that's very wise and very interesting. And also financial literacy. We didn't talk about that, but
Yes.
We know as business professionals that that's an important element and a role the general treasurer can play in that as well.
Very significant role. Very significant.
So we are out of time at this point, and we're going to have to let you go. What's the rest of your day look like, Stefan? And how can people get in touch with you if they would like to know more about your campaign or
Thank you for asking that.
to make a contribution?
So my day is, I'm all over the state. Thankfully, once again today, I'm attending community events and meeting Rhode Islanders where they are. And if people have an invitation for an event, it could be a large-scale community event. It could be a backyard barbecue. Please let me know. I love that part of the campaign process. I really love it. And I love getting the word out on how Rhode Island does have a strong economy, but plenty of room for growth. And with inflation and the volatility in the stock market and the overall economy that we're all feeling, I want to hear from Rhode Islanders what they expect from their treasurer, and I want to let them know that there is a candidate who's a professional who's invested billions of dollars, who is very willing to serve. I'm very excited about serving as treasurer, so I'm getting out there and doing all that. To find out about us, www.pryorforri.com is our website. You can enter information about yourself if you'd like to just interact with us, if you'd like to ask questions, if you'd like to volunteer. And also there's information about our campaign, what we stand for, and how we can strengthen Rhode Island's economy.
Fantastic. Thank you for spending so much time with us today. You've been very generous. We really appreciate that. And again, if folks are interested in reaching out to Stefan Pryor, we have provided that link. And we trust that you will be able to do so with ease. So with that, Stefan, enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Laurie.
Barbecues. That sounds like a good idea. And we will see you on the other side.
Really appreciate it, Laurie. Thanks for the opportunity. Be well, everybody.